Good morning and welcome back to Draper Startup House. I'm so excited to interview today our guest, Kitty Chopaka.
Hi.
So, Kitty, I was so excited to lure you up from Bangkok to connect with the community here in Chiang Mai. So, you are the founder of Elevated Estate. Can you tell our audience, what is Elevated Estate? What do you do? Why are you so interested?
Elevated Estate, in a nutshell, is actually just we are here to play the supporting role to assist and help grow the emerging cannabis industry.
Yeah.
So we're here in terms of giving the correct knowledge, what's going on, like that. That's very important.
Yeah.
What's going on with the law, what can you do, what can't you do, as well as how do we develop the actual industry itself with because it's an emerging industry, I figured that I want to just kind of get in there at the very beginning to make sure that there are a lot of social that is kind of part of whatever business that comes up in terms of cannabis, because that's very important. And then the whole eco side of things, because sometimes the actual cannabis industry itself is actually very non-green.
Right.
As well as the very important one is, I would say, is no bullshit.
Yes. Yeah, so you were a speaker on our panel last night for the City Spotlight event talking about the cannabis and hemp industry. So it was really great to get different perspectives on what's going there. And I think a reality check, right?
Yeah.
As we were kind of just saying, I think a lot of people's bubbles were burst last night because this is a really new industry. So it's hard to get into, and the opportunities are just infinite. But what in terms of what is actually possible right now, that's very difficult to figure out, right?
Yes.
So can you give us a little bit more background info on that? What's your advice for people who are currently researching Thailand's cannabis opportunities?
Read up some law. That's that. But then here's the thing: unless you know Thai, you can't really read that up. And I think the only translation that comes out are usually one that I did.
Yeah.
So that's another sad thing. I'm trying my hardest, guys. Give me a bit. I'm trying my best to try to come out with all the content, all the information, so that people at least have a basic understanding. But overall, right now is if we are considered private sector right now, no one can really get involved with any plant touching in terms of cannabis.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I keep on telling people this, that's not where the opportunity lies.
Right.
A lot of cannabis related opportunities are usually within the IP or within technology and within a lot of things that takes a lot of thinking and planning.
Yeah.
But overall, like I said previously last night, that the whole cannabis industry in its entirety, only 35% is plant touching, while the rest is actually not plant touching.
Yeah.
It could be packaging.
Yes.
It could be the actual program, the platform, all of those things, but all of them have some sort of an IP attached to their product.
Right.
So the packaging is specially designed just for cannabis. All of that, the IP there is registered, and that's how you make money.
Yeah.
It's not really grow weed, sell it, profit. It's kind of, people seem to think of cannabis how the underwear known in South Park is business. Literally, it's steal underwear, something, profit.
Yes. So the something, right? These are classic middleman entrepreneur opportunities, right? So as you said, in packaging and figuring out all the different ways the consumer actually wants to interact with the end product, right? And we have so many examples that we can draw from because it's super new, super emerging in Thailand, but we can see places like the United States, for example, where they're a little further along with that market, right? So what are some of the really exciting opportunities, maybe and examples that you've seen internationally for where the industry can go?
Well, here's the thing about, say, the US or Canada. You actually find that there's a lot of these, not regulation, it's regulatory software. There's a load of those, tracking. I see that is something that needs to happen here in Thailand.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't see it as a private sector. doing that. The government will probably figure and try to do something. And as much as all the different software and platform that comes out from there, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But there's also like consumer technology. Packaging, I'm actually very stressful about that because currently because the US is already mature. They now moved on to like recyclable packaging or hemp-based packaging because they know that they go through so much packaging. It's not funny, and it's actually worse for the environment because you can't really recycle it, you can't bring it back, you can't do shit.
Right.
So there's that, and then there's all the like we can go from like cultivation. There's a lot of different IPs around there, whether it's strains or whatnot. And then we go to processing. Don't forget about the technology of the actual processing of the plant itself. And then when you go to services sector, people keep on forgetting cannabis also need marketing.
Yes.
And marketing within the realm of cannabis, you can't use Facebook, Google, you can't use anything. So you need to be pro at doing cannabis marketing. Like that, there are a lot of different problems that need to be solved here as well as the US. And by finding those problems, just like any other entrepreneur would do, and trying to fix that rather than just seeing that cannabis and it's that, like this godly thing that somehow you have to, be plant touching to be making a profit. No, it's everything that's around it, and if you find that problem and you are able to solve it, that's where the value is.
Right. So the challenge is to educate yourself so much because there's tons of legislation, and you need to know exactly how to draw the borders and find the opportunities within that you can exploit.
Exactly.
All right. And so, this trip for you, you've been staying at Draper Starter House in Chiang Mai, but you've been running around and meeting friends. So, are you mixing business with pleasure on this trip to Chiang Mai?
Here's the weirdest thing. I only go out of my house if there's anything relating to cannabis, like whether it's meetings, whether it's like doing talks like this. So I don't usually leave my house unless there's something about it. So there's always a pleasure and business mixture into it because there's a lot of because this is an emerging industry. There's still the gray area, black area that is still there. And they are still considered as part of the industry itself as well. And you can't ignore them.
So the people who were growing it before it was legal are the people with the most experience, right?
And also it's because you can't ignore them, they are just people as well. And at the same time, if you are going to enter into any industry, you need to know of it in its own entirety, whether it's black, white, gray, whatever color it is. And that is kind of, sometimes that's what I do as well. I'll go and collect information. What's going on? How are they doing? As well as like what problems they have. Like whether it's like some like a little bit more like the authority issue, like what's wrong there. Trying to figure out like what can we help as like whether if they want to go into the legal side or whether it's just someone to bitch about. Like it's a lot of times it's eventually these guys will be the legal side of cannabis when it kind of fully open.
Right.
But until then, they are still kind of there in like I would say it's kind of they're like in a little bit of a limbo right now. Don't know what the hell's going on, and I'm not just talking about the growers, but like a lot of users, whether they are patients or whatnot, they are still being very the authority seems to be really hard on them, and sometimes it's actually not that fair.
Of course, And I think something that talking to you has also made me realize, because it's such a new industry, it's not like there's that many like independent certifying bodies that can tell you who is trustworthy and who's not, right?
Oh God, yeah.
So like networking and managing your relationships and like knowing who to trust is crucial.
One key thing about this whole industry, even though a lot of places has legalized it, the way that business is still done is still very much like an underground. There's still a lot of vetting. There's a lot of who's that person? Do you know that person? How's that person?
Yeah.
What has he, she done? You know, like there is always a story, and the funniest thing is that it's extremely small.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just Thailand. Like the US, EU, like we all know each other.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of funny when there's starting to be like international vetting.
Hey, it's good, right?
It's like,
Let's
hey,
strengthen the network.
do you know this guy? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Eventually, this all may be tracked and traced on blockchain, right? But for now, it's like it's real people network.
Oh yeah, and whatever you do within the industry, it will come back and haunt you
Yeah.
if it's nasty.
Yeah.
And they don't forget. Oh my god. So it's still, there's a lot of very, I wouldn't say mafia, but like it's still a very, because that's how they've been operating for so long, and a lot of the people that eventually come above ground was actually the underground.
Yeah.
So that's kind of get carried on. I would say that until it's actually more legal, recreational gets into play, and people are kind of more comfortable about the law, the legality of it, that's when it will probably move on to how business are done normally.
Right.
But until then, we'll see what's going
wild.
on. But another thing that I have to drop. This place is freaking awesome.
Aw, thank you, Kitty.
Like it's literally like I would say it's a residency for entrepreneurs. Like it's really cool, awesome coffee, awesome food. Come here, Chiang Mai, come here.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we're creating an environment that people can hang out in. You know, like it's. Our whole vibe at Draper Startup House is like, it's not like in an office setting, it's not in a boardroom, it's not any of like the stuffy meetings that actually is where people connect. It's like, it's what we were doing last night, you know, is just enjoying hanging out on the rooftop, vibing, and just getting to know each other, building those relationships in a more like informal environment. So like, who doesn't have business coffee meetings now? It's essential.
Sure.
Why would you go somewhere where the coffee's not good?
I know,
Especially
right?
in Chiang Mai, our coffee is so good.
I'm happy that I'm here in Chiang Mai because I'm a coffee addict, and it's like downstairs there's coffee.
Yep. Yeah. So you know, obviously you wear so many different hats, and with Elevated Estate, you know, your mom, entrepreneur, podcaster, legal advocate. So, what's the key thing you're working on right now for Elevated Estate? Is it this report that you were telling us about last night?
The report for the end of the year, it's something that I need to kind of come out every single year, especially with the changes. My first thought on it was I'm going to like report every 6 months, which was actually great back last year, and then things happened.
Right.
And then things just doesn't move along, and I'm like, screw that, we'll do a yearly thing.
Yeah.
And we've actually been we've been helping a lot of, not just the small startup guys, but like now it's gotten involved with like the bigger guys and the medium-sized guys, and it seems like they are planning for the future. And when the actual licensing would be available for private sector itself. So it's not like, I think the play is going to be very fun coming in the next, I would say, 6 months.
No, I think when something is the Wild West, it can make it a little dangerous, but it also makes for excitement and opportunity.
Oh yeah, there's so much different problem that's existing and available, and I do see that people will get smart. Like whether it's the consumer, they'll get to know what cannabis is. We'll eventually be able to kind of condense 20 years, 30 years of knowledge into something smaller so that it's bite-sized and they are understanding it more better, as well as hopefully to be able to explain what's going on to business people that wants to get into the industry, because it is one of those, like, I would say that I could see a unicorn coming out of this one. Like, we kind of miss out on the whole Bitcoin, you know, the I missed out on the .com era. I say that cannabis is a sure bet for some sort of a unicorn.
Yeah.
Not sure that whether we'll be it. Like we're here to support unicorns. So yeah.
There we go. Well, awesome. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, Kitty, and thank you so much for coming to hang out with us at the Startup House.
Likewise, thank you for having me. Like this place is awesome, and I'm away from the kids for a couple of days.
Oh, it's good. Take a break, have some business, have some pleasure, and yeah, enjoy.
Sounds
All right,
great.
thank you so much.